Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? Part 2. Old man proposed to old woman. He tried to get off the chair to kneel, tripped and fell, and I assume broke something since he couldn't get back up, and we had to call an ambulance. My manager had to drive her teeth to the hospital separately because she had taken them out to eat her soup, Lord knows why, and left them on the table in the confusion. Edited to add, I don't know if she said yes. My manager didn't get to see them at the hospital, only pass on her teeth to the nurse. Thank you kindly for the gold and silver though. Some of the adhesive products used to keep denture in the mouth really can't take much heat. Assuming the soup was hot, the adhesive would just turn into goo and drip in her mouth in addition to not holding the dentures in. I laughed so hard that my husband woke up and thought I was sobbing. Tried to stifle since he was sleeping. He reached over to console me. I imagined the teeth in the passenger seat, strapped under the seatbelt. Just sitting there and chillin'. Smiling and wanting to chat. I used to be a waiter in a 5-star restaurant. It was my first week. One guy was about to propose. It was obvious by how much he was sweating he was drenched. I tried to make them both relax. They went on to finish up their meal. As soon as the cake arrived, he then went on one knee. She stood up suddenly. He vomited right on her high heels. After the shock of what just happened, she still ended up saying yes. I was pretty sure my boyfriend was going to propose to me and was so excited that I spent all of our very nice dinner running back and forth to the bathroom to puke. He proposed later that night, and told me he almost held off because I was so sick. Turns out exciting events make me puke. Our wedding was no different. Have you ever proposed to someone? It's extremely stressful, even if you're 100% sure they'll say yes. I proposed to my girlfriend of 6 years. We were living together for 3 years already at that point, and I was still very nervous, not even sure why. I can handle anxiety pretty well, but it doesn't come as a surprise to me that some people would freak out in a situation like that, whether they were asking or answering the question. Haha, that just goes to show the story from the post above was very much plausible. I remembered another funny engagement story about a guy I know. He took his girlfriend of couple of years to a dinner in a fancy restaurant with an intention of proposing her, but he didn't do it that evening. She asked him afterwards why hasn't he proposed during the dinner. She was expecting him to. The reason he gave her cracks me up every time I think about it. He said, well, I was gonna, but you were talking all the goddamn time. I couldn't find 10 seconds of silence to ask you the question. They're happily married now, but I can just imagine him sitting there waiting for her to shut up so he could ask her if she wants to marry him all those years ago. Not my table, but back in my Olive Garden days, we had a man who looked to be in his mid-20s tap his empty wine glass with a fork to call for attention of the surrounding strangers, then get down on one knee with silver band in hand, and ask his girlfriend, date, to accept this promise ring. She looked horrified start to finish, had a man and woman sharing dessert, and the man playfully put a bit of the ice cream on her nose. She then did the same and he did it back once more, but with a different flavor of ice cream. She flipped out at him because you know I like chocolate the most, why would you waste it, you idiot? In the end she stormed out cause the man couldn't comprehend how much she was blowing up the situation. TLDR, man put ice cream on woman's nose. She is fine with it the first time, the second time she rages and leaves. Back when I served food at one of those super touristy seafood restaurants, I worked a Valentine's Day double shift. For lunch, this younger couple came in celebrating their 1-year anniversary. I offer my congratulations and proceed to do my usual spiel before taking orders. The girl is looking more and more dismayed the longer I talk. Finally I get to the end and ask if there are any allergies. She looks directly at her boyfriend and states, yes, I'm allergic to fish and shellfish. Then looks over at me very sad. I made sure every aspect of her meal was fine for her. But it was that look of we've been dating a year and he still takes me to a restaurant that could kill me that really did it for me. I was working for a higher-end chain steakhouse in the northwest corner of Greater Los Angeles, in the Valley. Valentine's is obviously one of the top 5 busiest days of the year for us. We did about 500 covers between 5 and 10 p.m. It's also a restaurant with a very open concept floor plan. Booths along the four walls of the restaurant and an array of tables in the middle with no partitions or anything between them. A younger couple, maybe mid-20s, dressed to the nines came in shortly after we opened and were seated in a table basically in the dead center of the dining room. They were very friendly and pleasant, and I could tell that for them, dining at our restaurant was a really special treat, so I did everything in my power to make it special for them. When they're done, probably around 7, I brought their check, which was around $300. When I came back to pick it up, the guy had a super embarrassed look on his face and he said he thinks he left his wallet in the car, and the woman, who is embarrassed for him, doesn't have anything with her because her dress had no pockets and she didn't bring a purse. So he goes out and 5 minutes later comes back in looking pale as a ghost. He has left his wallet at home and asks if he can call back later with payment info. My GM won't let this fly because there's no collateral of any sort he can leave, so the guy has to drive home to Burbank to get his wallet while the woman waits, with her hair done and her red lipstick and her pretty dress, in the middle of the dining room on Valentine's Day. Now, on the best day with no traffic, never happens, it's at least 40 minutes each way from our restaurant to Burbank. She was there for almost 2 hours waiting for this guy. We were all so embarrassed for her that the staff kept discreetly slipping her drinks and little amuse-bouche bites from the kitchen. It was one of the most awkward things I've ever seen in a restaurant. When he finally got back, he was super apologetic to us and to her. He paid the check and tipped like 30% and they left. It was pretty obvious it was an honest mistake, but I still think about that couple from time to time and wonder how things worked out for them. Posting this from my phone, so apologies for any typos or formatting problems. In college I waited tables and Valentine's Day was always a good one in terms of tips. I once saw a couple come in to eat. Halfway through the dinner the man's wife shows up to surprise the couple. The wife took the wine bottle and poured the remnants on the husband's head, took off her ring and told the girlfriend she could have him. He tipped me a $100. I set my hair on fire and spilled a full Stella on a lady. I work in a causal fine dining steakhouse. Luckily for me, the lady I spilled the Stella on was super understanding, and her husband said from across the table, well, now she has to take her pants off. So that could have gone worse for me. I stood just from leaning over to put some drinks down on their table and my BB got hot, so I looked down and my hair was on fire, so I put it out with my hair, said there's nothing to see here to my table and turned around and hightailed it to the back where my manager cut my hair mid-shift. I was working as a waitress in a sushi restaurant and Valentine's Day was an all-hands-on-deck shift. This guy I had just started seeing wanted to go out, but I told him that working in food service, you never get Valentine's Day off and we just have to celebrate the day after or the weekend after. Nope. He got so upset that he went and asked a different girl out, came to the restaurant I worked at on V-Day and sat in my section. He then proceeded to spend the entire evening making a fool out of himself and making his date uncomfortable as he tried to make me jealous. Needless to say, we didn't go out again. Ever. If he had surprised you at work and brought a couple friends that didn't have dates for dinner so that he could still see you on Valentine's Day, he'd have earned 1,000,000 points. But nope. Not only did he get mad over something stupid, he blew it with 2 women at once. Honestly, I'm kind of fucking impressed. That's obviously, insane level of confidence. Edit, gotta love being exhausted, and thinking you typed out words that were in your head. A couple sitting at the bar were enjoying their night out. The man got up from his bar stool and left for the bathroom. As his girlfriend was alone, and absolutely wasted, at the bar, a random woman approached and revealed that she recently matched with the woman's boyfriend on Tinder and had hooked up a week earlier. The drunk girlfriend refused to believe this story, so the woman showed her his Tinder profile and their conversation. The boyfriend returned to a drunk, sobbing and screaming girlfriend. I felt like I was watching a reality TV show. It was incredible. The poor girl was basically carried out of the bar by her boyfriend of 3 years whom she just discovered has been cheating on her for who knows how long. It was the most dramatic moment I have ever experienced and it was absolutely none of my business. Edit: I was a bar back at the time and this couple sat directly in front of the place I spend most of my time, the glass washing station. Edit 2, for those wondering how the woman knew the couple was in a long-term relationship. I really don't know. My guess is she figured it out the same way I did, based on listening, body language and the fact that this woman was overly touchy and liberal with cheek kisses and such. It was fairly obvious. Regardless, she approached out of concern and curiosity and she succeeded in outing the guy, which resulted in a very upsetting scene. I was the manager of a wings and pizza place with a full bar, definitely not the kind of place you'd take someone for a romantic Valentine's Day dinner, but it was still busy because some people aren't very tactful. We had a guy who had called ahead and asked if we could put a ring in a dessert for him and of course, we obliged. He dropped the ring off the day ahead and I put it in the safe in our office to keep it secure. Fast forward to Valentine's Day. The couple shows up, and they're so obviously in love that she didn't seem to notice or care about the fact that he had brought her to a middle-of-the-road place with a sports bar atmosphere on the most romantic day of the year. They ordered champagne, well, the local winery's best sparkling white, entrees, and it was almost time for dessert. I had used my chef skills to whip up a special chocolate strawberry tart that wasn't on the menu, just for this occasion, because why not try to make their night at least a little fancy. I went to the safe to get the ring, and it wasn't there. I was freaking out big time. I asked everyone there if they knew what the food had happened to it. My assistant manager on site had no idea, so I called my other assistant, who also had the safe code, and they didn't know either. Finally, my bar manager mentioned that one of the owners had been in earlier, and spent a little time in the office. So, at my wit's end, I called the owner. It turns out that he had seen the ring in the safe, and thought it was something a customer had left behind. Figuring that he had come into an extremely lucky situation, he decided, like the scumbag he was, that he'd take it for himself and save money on a gift for his wife on Valentine's. So, I asked the server and bar manager to help stall the couple. The server told them that we were going to do something special for their big date, and to hold tight. I ran out, hopped in my car, and rushed to get the ring from the owner's house, because he was, as I had mentioned, a scumbag, and didn't want to be bothered with bringing the ring to the restaurant himself. The bar manager went over to the table, and did some complicated, tableside cocktail mix that had a bunch of flair bartending tricks and ended with a flaming shot that, once dropped into the rest, made it smoke. I was really disappointed when I heard about all of this because I would have loved to see it instead of breaking a ton of traffic laws on my quest to get the ring. Finally, I rushed back and after about 15 minutes of being on the brink of a heart attack, placed the ring on the dessert, and had their server take it out. At that point, just about the entire staff was watching the table, and when we saw the look on her face, my heart finally started beating again. She said yes. And I started looking for someone else to work for the very next day. Edit: thanks for the awards, everyone. I was working at a corporate sports bar that specialized in chicken wings. V-Day, like most days, was insanely busy. As the evening winds down, someone calls in saying they're a professional food critic and demanded to speak to the manager. After a 15-minute call, the manager tells us the critic rated us a B and said the food was good, but the service sucked. He said he would leave that last part out of his review if we comped his meal and gave him vouchers for free meals in the future. But he refused over and over to say where he worked. Confused, the manager talked to the server. Who confirmed that the guy ate alone, ran her around ragged while shamelessly hitting on her, and left zero tip. He wrote his phone number on the tip line. Thirsty bitch wanted free food because the server didn't call him immediately for a date. I used to work as an editor for one of the bigger newspapers in the US, and the role of food critic at the time was super interesting. He was a quiet, unassuming older man, and there was an impressive amount of effort put forward in keeping his identity a secret. For one, he never ate alone. He would invite co-workers, mostly on the editing side so they wouldn't be recognized, and very occasionally his friends to go with, so he was never with the same group of people. He would also ask everyone to order something different so he could try multiple dishes without coming back too often and raising suspicion. He would hit each restaurant several times, at different times of day and different days of the week, before making his review. He would also never be the one who paid for the meal. Instead, he would have someone who came with pay for it, and then the paper would compensate them once presented with the check. There were no photos of him on the company website or anywhere in the system, and I think I only saw him actually come into the office once or twice to chat with his editor. He also made a point to have a wide variety of clothing styles to wear out, but nothing that made him stand out. I always thought it was over the top until his editor got a phone call from an extremely angry restaurant owner that had received a bad review. He was demanding to know when the critic had come, in order to check the security cameras and figure out who it was, and also demanding a redo, where they could give the critic a VIP experience. I get it now. Not a total disaster, but still not good. Had a table of 2 people, probably in their mid-40s last year. Took 45 minutes for this couple to get their entrees due to our kitchen being way too slammed. When they were dropped at the table, they immediately asked for to-go boxes because they told their babysitter they'd be home by a certain time. I overheard the wife say, "Well, I guess this is why we don't celebrate Valentine's Day." The worst part was that they weren't angry, just very sad. My personal feelings about dining out on Valentine's Day aside, I felt so horrible that this couple clearly had put in an effort to have a nice night with each other only to have it go that way. We comped their meals, BTW, edit to clear up some timing issues. I should have added more context to this the first time but wanted to keep it simple. They made a reservation but unfortunately got seated about 10 minutes late. They ordered a round of drinks while looking over the menu, then a salad course, and then entrees. So at the point their entrees arrived they had already been in the restaurant for close to an hour and a half. Check out our other videos and subscribe and leave your suggestions and experiences in the comments below. Have a great day.